I think the two comments we received, there is both a question of leadership. And there is this ask, how to get to one-day strike? Well, I think we need to define what is a one-day strike or what is a strike at all. It's a tactic. So a tactic is to achieve a goal. Well, the first thing is you have to ask yourself in Ontario, what's your goal? What do you want to achieve in the next year, in the next 2 years? And that's a collective discussion. How can the CFS leadership answer what we are going to do if there is not a collective decision on what we want to achieve together? And I think that's something very important. So, yeah, actually I will stay at that. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting question.
I can try to answer on the media question. I think it's an interesting one, but at class we consider that actually we have a mandate to consider that media are secondary to the struggle. So the basis of our work, and because we realized when the budget came out and all the government was talking about tuition, we would never get the higher ground in the media versus the government. And there's a lot of structural reasons for that, but I'm going to get into the details. But what we decided is that we have to go to talk to the students, so the students know what's happening, and the students are actually capable of having a second, counter-argument and a counter-discourse. And that's what we did in order for the strike to work. And when the strike worked, when the students were actually against tuition hike in favor of the strike, what we did is that we decided to go mobilize the population in general. And so Marianne talked a little about the Breton coalition, but we talked to other sectors of society, and we tried to talk directly to the people, to the workers, and to everybody actually, because I think that's really important, and because the media, as I said, cannot be turned to our advantage. At the same time, we didn't ignore completely the media, and we went on every possibility, every tribune they would give us. We went on it, and we repeated the same arguments. And I know that in the rest of Canada there was a lot of talking about the media strike, so kind of a blackout. But well, in Quebec there was no blackout, and the media talked a lot about the strike. So I think that local media, or at least if there's something happening in Canada, in Ontario, it will be talked about in the media, I'm pretty sure. Because one of the things, for example, why didn't the Anglophone media in Canada talk about the strike is basically, I think, the language barrier. And so, yeah, I just wanted to mention that, but really to put the emphasis on the fact that you need first to work on the ground if you want to have an impact on the media. And if you look at, there were a lot of polls, and there's still a lot of polls about the strike and everything about tuition hike. But one thing that's interesting is that when the budget came out in 2010, there was a poll saying that 70% of Quebecers thought that students should pay higher tuition, actually, so that tuition hike were a good idea. But we mobilized, we talked a lot to people, we created that debate. And when during the strike there was a poll saying that actually now it was only 50% of Quebec that were in favor of the tuition hike and 50% opposed it. So you see that public opinion can be shaped through mobilization and through the media in some cases, but I think it's really through mobilization that we actually could change the numbers.
Just going to add something very, very quickly. I think it's true what Hugo said, that it wasn't so much of a blackout in the media in Quebec. Actually, the media talked a lot about it, but a statistic that I find really interesting, and I keep saying it because that's something media tends to do, is they try to divert attention and from the actual issue. And so, for example, in Quebec, at the high point of the strike, 75% of our local news were about something related to the strike, but only 4% of that was on the actual tuition fee increase. So everything else was secondary to the struggle, but they tried, to divert attention. So that's something you have to be very careful of. And it's the question of the idea of message box, right? Every time they bring you on another path, you bring it back to what the issues are and what you want to tell people and what people should know about.
I will take the example of the current strike. The students are right now in the street only for, not only, but they take their vote on the question of the tuition hike. So they want to take off the $1,625 increase. But like we said, it's been raising a lot of issues. And in the term of building that strike, they also build a lot of link with laborers, with community organization. There was a coalition that been created. So imagine that the student win that struggle. So there is no increase of fees. Still, the long-term goal of class is free education, and still there was still other measures of austerity that are there. So it's why you need to really build the the struggle of ideas, and you need to win it on all levels, not only on the question of the fees, but all the context around it. So, and then when you win your struggle, for example, if you win against the increase, well, we have to be on the side of the workers then, because they also have their struggle and other groups. So it's an ongoing battles. But of course, the strike votes are taking on a very specific issue. But then we always need to understand it in the global context. I will forget the MVP. They're just being silent, like it's been said, and I don't know if we can call them a Labour Party, but okay. The question was about the labor movement, and yes, the labor movement being present not only by giving money, but by being in the street. They get buses. Actually, you know what was impressive? It's in some demonstration we will see all the people chanting together: workers, students, same struggle. That was great. Well, and so we saw participation. It was not just about solar statement or money, but now we are in this context where in the past a student strike we were succeed to win it if we succeed to stay enough long, if we resist. Now it's been, like I said, 160 days over that, and we still didn't win. So what's next step? If we're doing an escalation of pressure, what's the next step of pressure on this government? Well, the next step is a strike of everybody, basically. So it's a political strike. So it's a discussion that we're seeing now all around Quebec. But the political strike won't happen only on the question of hike of fees. So it's a lot of discussion, a lot of, we need to convince everybody on, we need to convince basically the majority, the 99%, like the Occupy movement, like to place it. And so there is some thought about, I know the CSN have adopted some kind of motion in that direction. In other unions, it's the debate are more very local, but they didn't get yet to the higher level. And unfortunately, we can see a fear from the union's leadership often, or the union larger on that question. On the question of the solidarity also outside of Quebec from the labor movement, I think Hugo will talk about this actually. So. Yes, I will let you that. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to talk about it. Yeah, I wanted to say that actually seeing, actually red squares in the room everywhere, and, seeing Castrol nights or seeing Solidarity rally in Toronto or in the rest of Canada and across the world is really something that helps actually students in Quebec to continue to struggle. When you've been on strike for such a long time, sometimes you do get desperate and you do lose hope. And I think just to see a Facebook picture of some kids in Madagascar wearing a red square really got me going for another week. And that's great from you all. It's here, we should be And so that's one thing. I also wanted to say, we love to say that because, well, actually Marianne said it, the idea that Jean Charest says that everybody in Ontario is happy about having high tuition. Well, starting a movement here is helping us in a way because we are facing the same challenges, and if you're struggling there, it's helping us to win our struggle in Quebec. And since you touched the question of kind of financial support, and I want to touch it because, well, I'm a representative here as a representative of an organization, and we are fighting Bill 78, which I suppose a lot of you heard about it, and this cost us actually a lot of money. We're almost bankrupt. So if you're part of a movement that has some funds, please come and talk to me. I'll try to give you some information, or even there's a bucket with a donation at the entrance. So if you can spare a few change, it will be helping us. We're putting all the money that we're getting from this tour into the legal fund to contest Bill 78, because I think Bill 78 is an attack on the students of Quebec, but also on the Students' Union of Quebec, of the Teachers' Union of Quebec, and on a lot of unions actually in Quebec and Canada. So if we could actually defeat that bill in the court, it would be a victory for students and workers across Canada. And we are, I think, in a good position to win that, because just today, for example, the Human Rights Commission of Quebec released a statement saying that they think that Bill 78 is unconstitutional, and that most of their articles are actually against the right of freedom of speech, the right to associate, and the right to protest. So we should continue to struggle in the courts as well as in the streets. I'll try to answer on the question about how to continue to build solidarity between unions and students, and solidarity between Quebec people and people here, people across Canada. It's not an easy question, but I think one of the key way that we do it in Quebec is, as mentioned, really by talking to each other on local campuses. And the teachers' unions have been really supportive of the strike. I would go in some classroom and talk about the strike, and then the teacher would jump in the conversation and talk about the issue as well as with his or her students. And so that's the kind of thing we saw at the beginning. And for example, we had a general assembly, and the teacher will show up and say, "Oh, you are about to vote on a strike." Well, here's what happened when I was teaching when the last strike happened, 5 years ago. So here's what happened, and they really helped us, actually going on strike in a lot of ways. But I think. I think that solidarity works both ways, and I like to give an example of students showing solidarity with teachers. Is a strike that happened at UQAM in 2009. What happened is that the teachers went on strike asking for higher wages, but also for the administration to hire 300 new teachers, new professors. And so we in our general assemblies talk about it, because there was something that really concerned us. And we said, okay, so the teachers will the professors want better wages, which is understandable, and they want to hire more teachers, which is a good thing for us, because we'll get, this is actually the ratio of students per teacher will be decreasing. So we also went on strike in order to support them. And contrary to what happened, for example, at York in 2008, the government wasn't able to enforce a back-to-work legislation, because even if it did so, if the teacher would have forced to go back to work, there was no students in the classroom, because students were on strike. And so basically the teachers got a part of what they demanded. They got the higher wages, and the administration agreed to hire 150 new teachers, which is a pretty good thing, I think. So we really decided that, and I want to also mention that the teachers in the strike were really there. Some of them put themselves at the forefront of the picket lines, just in front of cops, and saying, okay, you're going to beat up a student, you're used to it, you won't probably face consequences. But try to beat me, and you'll go on the TV news, and you'll get suspended. And so they were really here taking the shots for the students, actually. And that's, I think, one example of amazing solidarity that we saw during this strike. So I want to really, the idea that I want to push forward is that you got to talk to each other on the campuses, and I'm talking about that because that's what I know. I think it's also great to go to and reach to unions and regional councils in order to create better links. And eventually, we had this coalition of students' organization and community organization and student union. And that's by doing stuff together that we actually create those links and create that solidarity that we could see in the streets now. I don't know if you want to say something like that.
Well, I think also the question was addressing in between the two borders, so nation to nation. And I think the first step is to have a recognition I have to have like a relationship that is respectful. And the recognition of the different nations in Canada, including the Aboriginal nation, to self-determination. Does not mean we support to say like, oh, I want Quebec to separate, or Aboriginal people to separate. This means that there is nation and they have the right to make that decision. Is what this means. So there's a respectful relationship. And I want to mention also that if the national question is talked still in Quebec, it's because there is a national oppression that is still existing. So it's why we should not divide ourselves as workers across Canada on those questions, and for that we need respect. And we need to recognize that we have common struggle and common enemies, but there is still a national oppression. And even worse for the Aboriginal people, that actually it's been defined as a third world, equivalent of a third world country on some reserve. I mean, we need to address those, and we need to be solidar to the struggle of all the nations across Canada. Okay. Then just quickly about Quebec Solidaire, because I'm a candidate of Quebec Solidaire myself. Just mentioning that this is a front of different parties and people's organization. In the past, there was a series of left parties that were all having some kind of platform that were similar, but were all fighting in the election against each other, and then couldn't have a kind of current message. And a lot of people organization did have demands, but the only way they could address those was to go to see some real bourgeois party and lobbying them, or the lobby were not working. So the idea, and I was one of the people that found that organization. I was very young, I was only 12 years old, but I tell you, passing pamphlet. And we had this debate, and the idea was to create a united left front. So, Quebec Solidaire is a party that is creating still right now today. There is still debate, the platform is not done, there is many tendency into it, but the idea is the election is a moment where we need to discuss politics, and if we're able to agree on different people's demands, why dividing ourselves on those, and why not, putting them right on the table? So, and there was amazing discussion, like nationalization of bank that happened in Quebec Solidaire, and they are important discussion to have. Then for the question of the buzzy student, with the student that have 4 jobs and everything, I think the first way to win them, it will be more difficult, but it's by, again, the battle of ideas. They need to be convinced that your cause is also their cause. Also having flexible structure, having committee that actually address specifically their concern. I'm thinking especially about the international student that pay higher fees than the Canadian student or the Quebec students. Those students will maybe not see if you're going to do a strike to reduce only your fees. How can they, how they're going to vote for a strike? Well, they are working here on visas, they're sitting on visas, they don't have the right to work, it's very difficult for them. So during this Quebec strike, there was committees that were set up, for example, at Concordia, to, the only international were invited to, and they were discussing how are we going to get together, how are we going to struggle, what is a way for you to struggle. As a mother, I saw baby blocks in the demonstration, so I can participate. Babysitting even, it's important if I want to participate in General Assembly, because otherwise, I'm sorry, I cannot, I have a 2 years old. So, and this is all, and what's amazing is actually that the majority of people that need a lot of reforms, that we talk about free education, the healthcare system, or childcare, are actually the people that it's more difficult for them to struggle because they have so many jobs, or they are like single mothers, or they have a visa or anything. But in the same time, it's their struggle, so they need to get involved, and so we need to create a space for them to be involved.
So thank you, folks, for coming out tonight to this event. I hope that we all learned something, and I want to thank again our friends from Quebec for joining us tonight and joining us on this week-long tour. It's been amazing, and we've seen so many engaged students and activists and labor members and community members, and it's extremely inspiring to see everyone here tonight. So again, I'd like to thank you for being here, and let's please thank our Quebec speakers as well.